should have driven another hour, because whatever was in that motel room wanted me to stay. I've driven across the country more times than I can count. Long highways, empty gas stations, cheap roadside motels, it all starts looking the same after a while. You stop noticing the strange places because you're too tired to care. That night was different. I was somewhere in western Oklahoma heading toward Amarillo when the rain hit. Not normal rain, the kind that turns the entire windshield into a sheet of moving water. My GPS lost signal, and the next exit was the only thing I could see before the road disappeared into darkness. A faded neon sign flickered through the storm. Vacancy. The motel looked like it hadn't been renovated since the 80s. Half the lights were burned out. Every room faced the parking lot. There were only 2 vehicles outside, an old pickup covered in rust and a white sedan with no license plates. I almost kept driving. Instead, I pulled in. The office smelled like old carpet and cigarette smoke. A tiny television played the weather forecast with the volume muted. Behind the counter sat an elderly man reading a newspaper that looked years old. He didn't greet me. He simply looked up and asked, "One night?" I nodded. He slid an old metal key across the counter. Not a key card, an actual brass key with a faded plastic tag. Room 12. As I reached for it, he didn't let go. His eyes stayed locked on mine. Then he quietly said, "If you hear the shower running tonight, don't open the bathroom door." For a second, I waited for him to smile. He didn't. I laughed awkwardly. "Very funny." He slowly released the key. I wasn't joking. I told myself he probably said that to every traveler. Some weird local gimmick to make the motel memorable. Outside, the rain had become even heavier. Room 12 sat at the far end of the building, separated from the others by a narrow vending machine alcove that wasn't even working anymore. The door opened with a loud creak. Inside, everything looked old, not abandoned, just forgotten. A queen-sized bed, a small television bolted to a dresser, faded floral wallpaper peeling near the ceiling, a bathroom with yellowed tiles and a shower curtain that looked almost as old as the building itself. Nothing seemed dangerous, and still, the room felt strangely humid, not hot, just damp, like someone had taken a long shower only minutes before I arrived. The bathroom mirror had tiny droplets clinging to its edges. I assumed the cleaning staff had just finished. I dropped my bag beside the bed, checked every lock, pulled the curtain shut, opened my phone, no signal, not even one bar. The motel Wi-Fi appeared for a second, then disappeared. Outside, thunder rolled across the highway. I turned on the television just for background noise, but every channel showed static except one local station that kept freezing every few seconds. By midnight, I could barely keep my eyes open. The rain had settled into a steady rhythm against the roof. I remember thinking the old man had gotten exactly what he wanted. I was still thinking about his warning. "If you hear the shower running tonight..." I actually smiled to myself. Then I turned off the lamp. The room went completely dark. A few minutes passed, maybe 10, maybe 20. I was almost asleep when I heard it. A single metallic click coming from the bathroom. My eyes opened instantly. Silence. I held my breath. Another click. Then, the unmistakable sound of water hitting porcelain. The shower had turned on by itself. I stared at the closed bathroom door. The water kept running, slowly, steadily, like someone had just stepped inside. I sat up so fast that the mattress springs groaned beneath me. The shower kept running, and not sputtering, and not dripping or running, like someone was standing under it. For nearly a minute I didn't move. I listened. No footsteps, no voices, and just water. I finally grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam landed on the bathroom door. Still closed. I told myself exactly what anyone would. Old plumbing and bad pipes. Maybe another room shared the same water line. I got out of bed and walked across the room. Each floorboard creaked beneath my feet. The closer I got to the bathroom, the colder the air felt. I wrapped my hand around the doorknob and it was wet, not damp, wet. As if someone had grabbed it with soaking hands only seconds earlier. I swallowed hard and slowly pushed the door open. The shower was off. Complete silence. The curtain hung perfectly still. The sink was dry and the toilet lid was closed. Nothing. I actually laughed, and not because it was funny, because I was embarrassed by how scared I'd become. I reached over and pulled the shower curtain aside. Empty. Just an old bathtub stained by years of use. I stepped back into the bedroom, shaking my head. Get some sleep, I muttered to myself. Before closing the bathroom door, I glanced at the mirror one last time. That's when I noticed it. The mirror was completely fogged over. Not around the edges, the entire surface, like someone had taken a long, hot shower. But the room itself was cold. I walked back inside and touched the glass. It was warm. A slow drop of water slid down the mirror. Then another. I looked toward the towel rack. The large white bath towel wasn't folded anymore. It hung crooked, and the bottom half was soaking wet. I was absolutely certain it had been dry when I arrived. A knot formed in my stomach. I checked the bathtub again. Bone dry, no standing water, and no wet curtain. Nothing explained the towel. I decided I'd had enough. I grabbed my bag, planning to sleep in my car until sunrise. As I bent down beside the bed, I noticed something on the carpet. A wet footprint, bare, perfectly clear, facing the bathroom. I froze. Another footprint sat a few inches away, and then another. They crossed the room, then stopped. Not at the bed, not at the door. Simply stopped, as though whoever made them had vanished in the middle of the room. Every hair on my arm stood up. I backed toward the exit without taking my eyes off those footprints. My hand found the doorknob. I twisted it. Locked. I frowned. I unlocked it again. Pulled harder. Nothing. The door wouldn't move, and I pulled with both hands. Still nothing, and then, behind me, I heard the soft sound of the shower curtain sliding open. Very slowly. Metal rings scraping across the rod, and I didn't turn around. I couldn't. My breathing had become so loud I could barely hear anything else. Then came a single sound. A barefoot step. On wet tile. Then another, closer. I spun around. The bathroom door was wide open and the shower curtain hung open. No one was there. The room was completely silent again. I stood there for several seconds before forcing myself to look away. When I turned back toward the motel room door, it was standing open, wide open. Rain blew in from outside. I knew I had locked it. For a second, I just stared at the open doorway. The parking lot was empty. Rain hammered the cracked asphalt, washing everything in silver under the flickering neon sign. Then my car alarm started blaring. I ran. The cold rain hit me like ice as I crossed the parking lot. I unlocked my car, threw my bag inside, and turned the key. Nothing. The engine cranked once, then died. Again. Nothing. My headlights suddenly flickered on by themselves. In the rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of room 12. Someone was standing behind the curtain, not moving, just watching. Lightning flashed. The silhouette was gone. I didn't wait to see it again. I grabbed my bag and sprinted back toward the office. The front door was unlocked. The television was still playing, but the old man was gone. I called out twice. No answer. On the counter sat a thick guest register covered in dust. Out of instinct, I opened it. Every page listed names, dates, and room numbers going back decades. Almost every page had one thing in common. Room 12. Some names had small notes written beside them. Left before sunrise. Vehicle abandoned. Missing. Never checked out. As I turned another page, I found something that made my stomach drop. The last entry for room 12 had today's date, my name. written in the same faded ink as the entries from years before. I hadn't signed anything. Footsteps echoed behind me, slow, heavy. The old man stood in the hallway without a sound. His expression hadn't changed. He looked almost tired. "You saw the shower," he said quietly. I couldn't even answer. He glanced toward room 12 through the rain-soaked window. "It never wants the room empty." "What is it?" I finally whispered. He shook his head. I stopped asking that question a long time ago. Another silence. Then he looked directly at me. "You can leave." My heart lifted for a second. "But don't take anything from the bathroom." I remembered the motel towel still stuffed inside my travel bag. I'd thrown it in absent-mindedly while packing. Without a word, I pulled it out and dropped it onto the floor. It landed with a wet slap. The towel was dripping, as if someone had just used it. The old man slowly nodded. "You should go." This time the engine started immediately. I drove until sunrise without stopping once. I never reported what happened. No one would have believed me. Weeks passed. Life returned to normal, or at least I thought it had. Then one evening after work, I came home, took a quick shower, and stepped into my bedroom. I stopped. The bathroom door behind me was already closed. I was certain I'd left it open. I reached for the handle. Before I touched it, I heard it. A metallic click. Then, the steady sound of water hitting porcelain. Exactly the same sound and exactly the same rhythm. I never opened that door. I packed a bag that night and left my apartment before sunrise. I don't know what was waiting inside. I only know one thing, and I should have driven another hour. Because whatever was in that motel room never stayed there.